Hey, you knuckleheads, and happy holidays. This is the Kickin' It with Kiz podcast, and goodwill toward man, peace on earth. And isn't that what Sean Payton and Russell Wilson were talking about there in Detroit? Or maybe not. Can these two guys get along? Can Russell Wilson be the quarterback for Sean Payton in the future? That's the focus of this podcast. We're going to talk a little gambling, and we're also going to talk a little barbecue because I like barbecue. This pod is brought to you by Argonaut Wine and Liquor, Buffalo Trace Bourbon. I like bourbon too. And my good buddies at Midwest One Bank. And we're going to get this show started right after a message from my friends at Argonaut. Argonaut Wine and Liquor. It's where the party begins. Whether you're watching the big game or hosting friends and family for the holidays, Argonaut has everything you need to get the party started. Great wine at a great price. The best beers from across America. Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Argonaut has it all with over 15,000 items in the store. From friendly advice to a quick checkout, Argonaut has it. Conveniently located on East Colfax with plenty of free parking, make Argonaut your first stop for a great weekend. Need a hand in your party plans? Argonaut delivers. Take it from me and go see my friend Ron Vaughn at Argonaut Wine and Liquor. Or order straight from the website at argonautliquor.com.
I like when the bees start to bumble, the bees start to wrestle, summer breeze never hurt anyone.
Welcome back into the Kickin' It with Kiz podcast. This segment we're going to talk Broncos, and we're actually going to get some Broncos intelligence in this segment rather than just my rambling, because we have Parker Gabriel, the Denver Post fine lead beat person for the Denver Broncos. And Parker, I want to start by saying happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you. Maybe it's non-artificial intelligence.
Maybe it is. I want to start with a quiz. What do these quarterbacks have in common? Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Drew Lock, and Russell Wilson.
That is a good question. They've all started games for the Broncos.
Okay, you are correct. Ding, 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 ding. You win.
Big winner.
Okay, what do they not have in common? I'll answer that one, unless you got it off the top of your head.
Let's say 3 of them are in playoff position and 1 of them's not.
Oh, well, I don't know if I was going that big. Though. That's a very good point. I was just going to go this past weekend. 3 of them won games and 1 of them didn't.
There you go.
So here leads us to our topic. Joe Flacco couldn't do it in Denver. Case Keenum didn't do it in Denver. Drew Lock didn't do it in Denver. Can Russell Wilson do it in Denver and get along with our man Sean Payton?
Maybe 2 different questions.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, kids. Like, we've seen signs of it this year. Like, we've seen signs of it maybe even both ways this year in terms of Russ. Like, you know, the touchdown interception ratio is one thing. Part of that's because they haven't run the ball in the red zone. But I guess for the simple answer, I still think he can. He doesn't play quarterback like the way Drew Brees played quarterback. He doesn't play quarterback the way Sean Payton played quarterback like Drew Brees played quarterback way back in the day. Obviously not to the same level, but same kind of player. Process, operate in the pocket, get the ball where it's supposed to go. Russ isn't like that. And really he never has been. And so, like, can he do it? I mean, I think he can, and I think Sean's been good for him in some ways. Then the question is, like, who's going to budge to sort of collectively get where they want to go?
I mean, we're talking about this, and everybody in Broncos country is talking about it this week because of their little happy holidays greeting on the sideline there in Detroit. And I don't really care what it was about, whether it could have been Russ saying, hey, man, we should have gone for it on 4th down, or it was Sean saying you should have run the play to Javonte Williams better. That doesn't matter to me. You know, what's the reason? I don't I don't know if the reason really matters to me. And I don't think it's necessarily bad for a coach to yell at a player, but this is what I want to bounce off you. I just don't think these two guys have really meshed in terms of personality all season long. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they're really different, and the times where Russ is so positive, there's so much cotton candy that it's he always takes the road of just saying Sean's great, exactly how he is. Sean's great. It's great working with him. He's always wanted to play with him and all this. Sean obviously, and that's Russell's personality, is to say it that way. Sean's personality has been he refused to say anything nice about Russ when he wanted to have dinner with Joe Montana, and Russ just happened to be there back in the Super Bowl, right?
That's where it started, man. It's like, yeah, Russ, you sit in the corner there. I'm talking to Joe, and pass me the butter when I say so. I like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, and he's and there's been these sort of like along the way, it's continued to be like that, at least to some degree. There was a day in OTAs where Russell walked off the podium and Sean walked up, and Sean put his hand on Russell's shoulder and said, "I don't know how fast any of you guys type, but Russell told me he types 60 words a minute." And there's always just been this sort of like strange, but as it's gone on, like second half of training camp, Sean couldn't help but say like, "Hey, listen, Russell's playing pretty good right now."
Right.
And I think we can do this. And so to me, like they're just very different human beings. Like they're wired different, except for the fact that they're both really competitive. And so the question to me isn't so much like, can they get along? Are they going to play golf in Cabo in March? No, probably not. But like, I guess my question to you kids would be like, can their football brains get on enough of the same wavelength that they can win football games if we just cast out the fact that they're ever going to be, similar as individuals?
Where I think it starts is they got to go to a Sierra concert together. But
yeah, exactly.
That's just me.
Yeah.
That's just me. Well, see, your point about them being so different, I've heard folks, analysts and fans say, what I would have liked to seen in that sideline thing is Russ yell back. Russ ain't gonna yell back. I mean,
yeah.
he might go.
Who's the last person he yelled at?
Yeah, I mean, he might go home and mutter under his breath about the dude, but that is not stay neutral. Russ is never gonna do that. But that just shows you how different they are. Sean is gonna show you up if he thinks he's right, and that goes for you in the media, that goes for an assistant coach, that goes for a player. That's just how he is. People got upset with me when I say Sean Payton's a jerk. That's not even criticism. He just is. He likes being a jerk. He's from the Bill Parcells school. I'm a jerk. We're going to win because I'm a jerk. And I'm like, all right. I think Russ being Mr. Neutral can put up with the jerkiness of his coach. I just don't know if he can execute Sean Payton's offense and if Payton is willing to adjust his offense enough to suit Russ. I get the impression that Payton feels almost like burdened by, I have to prop this quarterback up. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's easy. Yeah. I agree, especially with the sort of the second half of that, just in terms of the the question to me when you watch Russell this year, like he trimmed up in the offseason, he looks good physically, and like I'm not saying he's the exact same player that he was when he was an All-Pro and he was like 25 or whatever, but like the things that he does really well, he's a really unique player. The way I've settled on it the last few weeks is like, he does stuff in most games that like a good number of NFL quarterbacks can't do or don't do on a regular basis. But he also misses stuff in most games that almost no NFL starting quarterback misses. And so like, where does that all even out in like, is he good? Is he bad? I mean, it's not black and white. He's a pretty unique player, I think, at this point, that has big pluses and some pretty substantial limitations. And so like, is that the puzzle piece that Sean is willing to build his offense around? I guess that's sort of like the $245 million question. And I don't know. I mean, it seemed like most of the time it seems like he's up for that challenge. And then maybe it's just because they've lost these games, but like after the games where he's watched the other sideline have an offense that can do whatever it wants, play however it wants, Miami, Kansas City, Houston with the young guy, CJ Stroud, and then Detroit this last weekend. Like what Jared Goff and Dan Campbell are doing in Detroit is what Sean wants his offense to look like.
Okay.
Run the ball, play action, and have a quarterback that's like doing the smart, right read every time. And that's just not the way it's going to, as long as he and Russell are together in Denver, like that's not the way it's going to be.
Okay. You bring up a couple great points there. Number one, the quarterback that Russ is. And, Sean Payton's obviously a much smarter football man than this knucklehead. But last season, Russ' first season in Denver, that his limitations were greater than I expected them to be. And his magic was greater than I expected it to be, even in that terrible season last year. If you give Russ the ball with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, he's not John Elway, but the other team's in a lot of trouble because he's competitive. He can still use his legs, and he'll figure something out in the crisis. On the other hand, all last season, I was like, how could he not see this guy open? How could he not throw this guy open? Why does he never throw the ball in the middle of the field? And it was like, wow, there are a lot of basic NFL quarterback skills that he's just not very good at.
Yeah.
And that combination of he can have magic that wins the game with the average Joe Flacco or the average Case Keenum should be able to throw the guy open, and Russ can't do it. I see why it can drive a coach crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And like we've seen Sean win. I mean, mostly with Drew Brees, obviously, but like, what do you go 5-1 with Teddy Bridgewater? And like he's shown that when you have the guy that can just do the thing, even if it's not spectacular, that he can build around that. And so like the thing that's sort of wild is like, I think it's still fair to say that Russ is in a different echelon just in terms of like caliber of player than those guys. But at the same time, it's not the same challenge. It's not that can you design route concepts so beautiful that the window will be big enough for even Case Keenum and Davis Mills and these guys to hit them. It's can you build a winning thing with Russell? And like, good question. I think we've seen signs of like maybe, but it's going to be a patience tester for a guy that, wears his heart on his sleeve, to say it lightly.
Okay. What you inspired me, you inspired this crazy thought. I think that Sean Payton wants a quarterback that can paint by numbers to perfection. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And if you do those steps as I present it as Sean Payton, the mighty football god, that I will scheme it up so the other team cannot stop us.
Yeah, lead you to the promised land.
Yeah, yes. And Russ maybe can, in the paint by numbers, he can maybe do step 1 and step 4, but 2 and 3, he's just lost on. And Sean Payton can't get it through his head. It's like, why can this quarterback not do it my way? And I think it would just be unhealthy for both of them. As much as I've advocated, bring them back, let it go another year. I don't know if Sean Payton can handle it. So here's my next idea. When the decision is made, bring Russ back or not, is that Sean Payton's call alone, or is it such a heavy financial decision that the ownership has to be involved?
Yeah, I think ownership probably has to be involved. I mean, I think I tend to think that at the end of the day, like Sean will have the biggest voice in that conversation. I I don't think you fully discount George Payton's wing in the decision, but that part of it, I mean, it could be as simple as, hey, give me the 5 ways that we can approach the salary number. And this is mostly in we think we want to move on, right? Give me your most creative ideas on how we handle this dead cap burden over the next 2 years. And let's focus on this, and this. And then if they, you get something that you think is even remotely workable, and you say, okay, we're doing this, we're going to move on. So, I mean, there's such a cascade of like stuff that comes like during that process and after that process that it obviously doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I don't think Greg Penner doesn't strike me as the type of CEO and controlling owner now that will just fully give Sean Payton carte blanche to say thumbs up or thumbs down. But I do think Sean will have the biggest say.
Okay, I think you're right on that. And I think if I'm Greg Penner and I have the Walmart billions behind me, I say, all right, I'll eat the dead cap. But you got to tell me how this is going to work in a football sense. If we're going to eat, how many millions? Tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it's 40 million cash.
Right. If I'm going to eat 40 million cash, Mr. Football Genius, you better have a good football idea of why it's going to be worth my 40 million.
No doubt. And I mean, not to fully drag you down the rabbit hole here, kids, but like the thing about getting rid of Russ after this year, which I've written it. I mean, I think there's just a lot of monetary reasons why, even given all that dead cash, like something's got to happen after the year, whether it's they move on from him or they convince him to restructure or whatever. Like, I just still think that is all probably in play for various reasons. But like, if you do that, like, okay, you could draft a guy. We could go back to Sean saying that the evaluation on Jarrett Stidham was crystal clear when they signed him in free agency. But the fact of the matter is, like, even if Russell's not on the team next year, your quarterback room's expensive for 2 years because he's going to count against the cap likely for 2 years. And so, like, the question is, there's so many questions. Sean Payton's certainly never worked with a rookie quarterback, hasn't really worked with many young quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. What does that picture look like, given the way he's chewed out his veteran quarterback on the sideline, the way he just, is wired? Can you win with a young quarterback that's an expensive quarterback? Like, there's so much fallout from a decision like that like, it's really not as simple as just saying, like, is Russell the quarterback next year or not? There's like myriad obstacles in the path either way.
I'm Sean Payton, and I come to Russ, and in the Sean Payton, delicate, diplomatic way, I say, hey, man, you restructure your contract or get your butt out the door. What's Russ's reaction to that, you think?
I mean, Russell has said he wants to play till he's 40. He wants to play 20 years. And, after the initial, like, hey, man, that's not very nice. To put it in podcast terms. Like, maybe it's, if you don't believe in me, then go for it, man. Pay me the money, take the big hit, and I'll make my fortune somewhere else. Or maybe it's, my legacy's on the line here, Mr. Agent, figure out a way to make this work. Yeah. Because I don't want to start over a third time. I don't want to play in a fourth offense in 4 years. I don't want to be the guy that went there and got cut before he played a single down of his extension that doesn't start until next year. Like, all of that, there's like an emotion to sort through, and there's a business to sort through, and there's legacy to sort through. And like, I don't think we know how Russell Wilson in his heart of hearts would order those things. But I don't know. I mean, legacy's a powerful, legacy's a powerful thing in sports.
All right. I'm going to do, before I let you go, I'm going to do two things. I'm do the proper broadcasting thing and say, I've got the solution for life after Russ, but that's going to be my Sunday column.
Nice.
So tease.
DenverPost.com/Broncos.
There you go. There you go. You can read it. Probably posted on sometime Saturday, so you don't even go to bed Saturday night until you read what I got to say about that. And things can change, and as you say, it's very complicated. So I don't know the answer to this either. We're just guessing. We're in the last, few days of December, and we don't even know how this season's going to turn out yet. Playoffs, no playoffs. So I'll phrase it two different ways. Right now, is your guess Russell Wilson is the quarterback of this team next year or not? And is that dependent at all on whether they make the playoffs or not?
I think it is. I think it is dependent at least a little bit on if they make the playoffs. And it's even hard to equivocate the wild card round or the divisional round or whatever. But obviously, if they've made a huge run, you might just ride the magic. I'm guessing, obviously, but I've laid out the contracts, particulars and all of that before. I think barring a restructure, which is certainly possible, but I think all things being equal right at this moment, I don't think he will be. Okay. And that's subject to change because part of it is just he has this thing where the money becomes guaranteed for 2025 in March. And if they got rid of that, it becomes much easier to say, hey, let's see what this looks like in year two. But unless that happens or there's some other sort of restructure, I just don't think they'll make the multi-year commitment that it would be keeping him past March. Purely a guess, and that's based mostly on numbers and whatever. But that's sort of where I'm at it at this moment.
Okay. And what we're getting at here is that it is complicated enough that it might be crystal clear in Sean Payton's mind. But if you add the finances into it and whatever ownership might say about that, I don't know if it's 100% certain one way or another. And I flip-flopped on it. I went, hey, Russ deserves a chance to come back. But I think Sunday will be my hint that I saw that exchange on the sideline, and these two guys just really aren't good for each other. And let's move on. Let's move on. Let's everybody be happy.
That's right. Yeah, it'd be interesting if it was crystal clear in Sean's mind, in Russell's mind, in Greg Penner's mind, and in George Payton's mind, and how many of the four have the same form of crystal clarity in their minds.
That's right. All right. I really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
You bet. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Let me tell you about Midwest One Bank for all your business and online banking needs. Midwest One is conveniently located at 19th and Wynkoop, which is right next to Coors Field. But the reason to bank at Midwest One is the personal attention and expertise that you will get from my friends Kevin Conroy and Joe Van Haslen. When it's time to get down to business, let their decades of knowledge in Denver business go to work for you. Don't get one banker's advice, but tap into the entire winning team that Kevin and Joe have put together at Midwest One. Let them help you put your vision and dreams into reality. Midwest One, the bank for all your business needs. Go see Kevin and Joe. They bring a personal approach to commercial banking at Midwest One. Simply better banking. Welcome back into the Kickin with Kiz podcast. This is the Take Your Shot segment, which I like to call the worst gambling advice in Colorado, if not the entire country. You guys know more about gambling than I do. I'm just trying to figure it out. But I'm going to do a humble brag. I don't actually do touts because I don't want to lose your money. I can lose my own money, but I don't want to lose your money. But the last 2 weeks, my strongest suggestions were the Lakers are going to win the in-season tournament. We got that right. And if you're going to bet on Jerry Jeudy, the one that you never know quite what he's going to do, take the over on the yards against Detroit, and they just throw him the ball deep. There you go. So this is what we're going to talk Broncos again this week. I want you to think of it this way. Do you still think the Broncos are going to make the playoffs? If they win out, if they win their last 3 games, they got a really good shot at it. Though they do need some serious help. But here's your opportunity. Before that Detroit game, which I thought there was no way they were going to win that, they were plus 115 to make the playoffs. Bet 100 to win 115? What? They weren't that strong to make the playoffs. But now they lose 1 game to Detroit, and some things go badly for them on Sunday in terms of the rivals in the AFC for that playoff spot. And now they're plus 230. The odds have doubled. So if you feel with all your heart that the Broncos will win out against 3 pretty bad football teams, you have a better opportunity now to make some money than you did a week ago. So maybe that blowout in Detroit can be beneficial to you. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but it might be worth a look-see. And one other thing. I saw the over-under for this Patriots game, and I see it at either 34 points or 34 and a half points. I see it at either 34 points or 34 and a half points. So the Broncos are going to win this game, what? 20-14? That's going to be some boring Christmas Eve football material, don't you think? Better stock up on the eggnog if you're going to watch that one. All right, enough of that. Hey, I know you all are proud Bronco maniacs. Me? I'm a proud bourbon geek. If football is America's game, bourbon is America's drink. And one of the best bourbons in America is Buffalo Trace, available at Argonaut Wine and Liquor. Found in the heart of bourbon country, next to the Kentucky River, is Buffalo Trace, the world's most revered distillery. After covering the game for the Denver Post, I love to sit back, relax, and sip on a fine bourbon. Buffalo Trace is great in a cocktail and even better on the rocks. Want to talk sports with me? Pour me a drink and make it Buffalo Trace. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Kickin' It with Kids podcast. This segment is a passion play of mine. It's called Bourbon and Barbecue. Y'all out there are fans of the Broncos or the Rockies, or if you went to Duke the way my son Nate did, you're a fan of the Duke Blue Devils basketball team. I cover sports for a living, and as a journalist, I'm not a fan. But I love bourbon and I love barbecue, and so this segment allows me to be a total fan, and I love that. And I love discovering new barbecue joints. I have favorites across the country. Dreamland in Alabama. I could go on. Slaps in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I could go on and on. There are favorites in towns across the country that if I'm going to that town, I try to stop there if at all possible. But the question for this segment about barbecue is, how do you know if a barbecue joint has game? When you first walk into a barbecue joint, how do you judge it? And how do you decide whether this is my place or not?
I think you don't even have to get inside for your first clue on it. You just have to use your nose as you're walking up. I think you can tell a really good barbecue joint if you're just downwind of it, however far away.
Yeah. If that smoke is going full blast, it gets your it gets you in the mood for eating before you ever get in the front door.
Exactly. And some of those barbecue joints, there's a couple down in Austin too, and Texas where I spent some time. you're going to be spending some time outside the door just waiting to get in. So that's another way is, you got to wait out and wait for it to come out of the smoker or wherever it's at and just to get a bite.
Yeah. Is there a higher standard? I didn't think I was going to talk about this right away, but is there a higher standard for a barbecue joint where you do have to stand in line? Because absolutely, like Franklin's in Austin, you have to get there at 8:30, 9 in the morning.
Yeah, people bring camp chairs and sit down and they're waiting for hours.
That's right.
It's a weekend day, yeah.
You're right, yeah. So it's like standing online for Duke basketball tickets,
Sure.
And if you love barbecue that much, you'll do it. And that some barbecue has such a cult following.
Yeah.
I think that makes it cool too. Doesn't necessarily make that place your favorite. If you walk into Texas is known for brisket. Do you walk into a barbecue place and have in mind? What's your favorite smoked meat? Or do you have a favorite smoked meat?
I guess the first time I go anywhere, I have to try their brisket and pulled pork, and those are just my essentials that I just have to try, and that's what I'm going to judge it off of initially. And then, I do my due diligence most places I go, and I try to see if there's anything they're known for in particular. And, if it's a smoked pastrami or their burnt ends are particularly good, then I make sure to try, what's their spin on it, what makes them unique of what they do outside of just the basics too. So
part of why I like barbecue so much is it relates to bourbon, that it's very much American. It is not expensive French cuisine.
Sure.
And you don't need to mind your manners at a barbecue joint. And I like that too.
Yeah. But to your point earlier of, my standards are going to be higher if I have to wait in line. But another place, like we drove back from undergrad and stopped and, kind of just drive through towns in Texas. And you'd walk in and there's great cafeteria style tables. And it's just, that's the community. Everyone's there for lunch. Everyone's getting off work and heading there. And very American, very communal, and I think that's another good sign.
Yeah, the barbecue is communal by nature, and in the best barbecue joints, you will see a wide range of economic and ethnic backgrounds.
Sure.
Because the food brings them there, and if you're all sitting at big tables, just like it's easy to talk about sports, how about them Cowboys, or what do you think of the Broncos? It's like, man, this brisket or this tater salad is really good, don't you think?
Exactly.
And barbecue's about talking and conversing and getting to know your neighbor too, and I like that. So if you see... I just saw this. If you're in a barbecue joint and everybody's on their cell phone, you're in the wrong place, man.
If it's too quiet or people aren't talking, like you said, like some fine French cuisine or whatever, exactly. That's not where I want to go.
Okay, and so where I started with barbecue though was not beef ribs, but pork ribs. And I don't know the whole history of barbecue joints, but I do know that it was chefs or cooks or your aunt or your grandpa or whoever it was trying to figure out how to make a good hearty meal on not a lot of money. And so as I understand it, nobody really ate pork ribs until pitmasters figured out a way to make them fall off the bone and yummy good. And so my two things when I go to a barbecue joint, the smell is important, that the community feel is there is important, and I'm going to try the pork ribs, and I love burnt ends. So if pork ribs and burnt ends is what I first and foremost judge a barbecue joint by.
Fair enough. All good things. At the end of the day, I want to try everything that they have. So.
Okay. All right. Give me more.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Sounds good.
Let me tell you about Midwest One Bank for all your business and online banking needs. Midwest One is conveniently located at 19th and Wynkoop, which is right next to Coors Field. But the reason to bank at Midwest One is the personal attention and expertise that you will get from my friends Kevin Conroy and Joe Van Haslen. When it's time to get down to business, let their decades of knowledge in Denver business go to work for you. Don't get one banker's advice, but tap into the entire winning team that Kevin and Joe have put together at Midwest One. Let them help you put your vision and dreams into reality. Midwest One, the bank for all your business needs. Go see Kevin and Joe. They bring a personal approach to commercial banking at Midwest One. Simply better banking. Here's the parting shot where you all get to call me a knucklehead. You know, the great thing about doing this job forever, well, it's not the only great thing, but it's one great thing, is that I don't know if you're old enough to remember pen pals. I don't even know if you're old enough to remember writing letters. But some people read me so much that they like to give me advice on the regular. And there's this one dude named Michael that if a week goes by and he doesn't send me a missive via email, I wonder if he's doing all right. I wonder if he left the country. Well, Michael, this week starts it by saying, "Dear Mr. K." I like that, Mr. K. Well, the weekend in that Detroit, just redo that part right there. Okay. Yeah. He goes, "Dear Mr. K." I like it when he calls me Mr. K. But Michael says, well, that lost weekend in Detroit has come and gone for the Broncos. And the team's apologists keep talking about the NFL playoffs. You heard it here first, kids. There is no way under God's green earth the Broncos are going to the playoffs this year. Aside from the fact that they simply don't deserve to do so, the wishful thinking that somehow other teams are under some type of obligation to help them out to make the playoffs is just plain crazy. Well, Merry Christmas to you too, Michael. I'm an optimist. That's why they call me Mr. Sunshine. And we'll end right there by saying happy holidays to y'all. And we're all knuckleheads, so lend a hand when you can. Let me, before I get out of here, thank Argonaut Wine and Liquor, Buffalo Trace Bourbon, and my friends at Midwest One Bank. See you later.
I like when the bees start to bumble, the beats start to wrestle. Summer breeze never hurt anyone. I like when I see all the couples, their feet start to shuffle as they're dancing to their favorite songs. Beautiful day, you cannot steal my joy. Get out my face, don't wanna hear that noise, so go away. I'll walk you to the door. This is a place without war. Please tell me what you want from me. Wait a minute, I think I got a hunch indeed. I'm happy and misery likes company, but on that lonely road I can't accompany so much tranquility. Why would I want to leave? The only thing that's blue here is the sky and beach. You must be new here, let me assign your seat, help you find your peace. I like when the bees start to bumble, the beats start to wrestle. Summer breeze never hurt anyone. I like when I see all the couples, their feet start to shuffle as they're dancing to their favorite song.
Yes, Lord, late night drives in the back road. Shawty need a light for a backwood. Later in the night, she go backward. After that, take her back home, back up. Shawty got the back up. Argue every day, dog swear I was back up. Two-way street, I was sorry I was backed up. I'll make love, we back up. That's a bad dad joke, funny ain't my sad joke. Working on my shadow, couldn't be no more proud of my own biggest doubter. I'm still man of the hour, sharing in my head, I'm quietly the loudest. Wow.